This is the Meaning Business Podcast, your go-to source for business tips, advice, growth, and exit strategies, hosted by Bruce Coudrey and Peter Spinda. Each episode, we bring you real stories, expert insights, and practical advice to help you succeed in today's market. Let's dive in.
All right, so expenses in.
Are we starting?
We'll start. Yeah.
Okay.
What have you seen to be the top three expenses in most businesses? So on average, what are the top three?
We're not including cost of goods, so rent,
Yep.
wages, usually marketing or advertising, but rent and wages would be the top two.
Yep.
Why do you ask?
Why do I ask? Okay, so we know that there's some costs that we can control. We know some costs we can't. So we know, for example, rent. If we've signed a 3-year lease or 5-year lease, we know what the fixed cost is. We also know that we've got variable costs, we've got staffing costs, we've got all these costs in business, and that's normal. That's how we can run a business. What I think a lot of business owners often miss and don't appreciate is that when we're looking at our costs, we should be looking at our costs from a investment lens point of view. And what I mean by that is when I'm looking at a cost structure, I'm thinking, okay, what's the return on investment that I can make on that expense? So if I'm going to put on an extra person in the business and I'm going to pay them $100,000 base, for example, plus super, et cetera, they're going to cost me $120,000 a year. Then I'm thinking, okay, what's the value that I can get out of this person for my business? How can I get the most bang for buck, if I can put it that way, from that particular expense?
Okay, you're looking to put someone on, they're going to cost you $80,000 a year. What return are you going to get out of that $80,000 a year?
Absolutely.
Which needs to be better than $80,000.
That's exactly right. Now, the reason we're sort of focusing on the people side and we're sort of going down that path is because we know for a fact that people make or break a business. We know that having a really good team can actually propel the success of the business forward. Having a really good team can allow the business owner to eventually step out of working in the business, step into more a strategic role. It makes the business more valuable, easier to sell. But we also know the flip side, which is where if you've got poor performer on the team, they can culturally bring down the rest of the organization. It decreases output, increases issues from a customer experience point of view, and ultimately it could lead to the demise of that business.
Yes, that's right.
So
I was going to say at least the decline, but the decline is the demise.
It is the demise, exactly. Eventually, that's where you're going to end up unless you fix it.
Yep.
So that's one point. The other point is that when it comes to the people side of things, if you lose someone in the business, bringing someone in can actually be really challenging. It can be time-consuming. It can be costly for many reasons, whether it be finding, whether it be onboarding, whether it be the tenure they need in order to get to know your customers, your processes, your systems, all of that. And so when we're in business and we're thinking of people, we really need to think about redundancy from a people perspective. We really need to structure our people, our processes in such a way that at any point in time, everybody in the business can be replaceable, including the business owner themselves.
Especially the business owner. In fact, if the business can't run without the business owner, it's not a business. It only runs as a business if it runs when the business owner is not there.
Absolutely.
Really, isn't that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
a lot of people have jobs that they think are businesses, included. It's not a business. It's a business when you don't need to run it, and it runs on its own. And I heard this interesting thing, I think I might have mentioned this to you recently, that a guy said, I'm a terrible business operator, but I'm a great business owner. And it made me appreciate there's a massive difference between working in your business and on the business. So you can be a great business owner, you can own it and encourage the people to run it and work it. But when you have to run the business yourself, you're hopeless at it.
Exactly.
And that, in fact, probably forces you to step away from the operation because you know you can't do it.
That's right.
And then you've got a real business.
That's right. And if you take that to the next paradigm or next level, you've got someone like Warren Buffett who started out collecting soda caps, and then he had the vending machines and other bits and pieces. He's not a good operator, but he's a very good investor. Yeah. And then he just buys assets, puts in the right team.
He's a good owner.
Absolutely. Puts in the right team and they operate the business for them. So
yeah, and like you said, he's taken to the next level where he owns multiple companies and he's a good owner of multiple companies.
Exactly. So when we're talking about business and we're talking about people, anytime we're building a business with people in it, we've got to have that redundancy. We've got to have that ability to swap that person out with someone else, someone new stepping in, and they know as quick as possible what they need to do. Now,
so just back to something interesting. Sorry, Pete. About replaceability.
Yep.
Replaceability. Are we going to talk about that?
We will. Yep.
Yeah, cool.
Absolutely. But before we go there, I wanted to do a quick sort of calculation here. I had a look before, and according to the information that I've gleaned, the median salary, median wage in Australia at the moment is $65,000. The average is $98,000. So if we take that $65,000, we add superannuation, on-costs and things like that, we know that the average employee in Australia at the moment costs the business around $80,000 per annum. Per annum.
That's the lowest.
That's the lowest. If we work on the average, then we're probably looking at around $120,000. So if we said, okay, and the standard employee costs us about $80,000, we've got 5 full-time employees, that's $400,000 a year that we're paying our staff to work in our business and do whatever we need them to do. Now, that $400,000 is an investment that we're making in our business. And the question is, if your staff are sitting around and they're only working at 60%, 70% capacity, you're really not maximizing, leveraging the $400,000 to the best of your abilities. If out of the 5 staff, you've got one who's really detrimental to the team, poor performer, they're bringing the culture down, and as a result, you're having customer issues and all these other complaints coming in, all these other impacts which impact on the bottom line, profitability, then again, the $400,000, it becomes more a liability than an investment.
Yeah. And so here's the message. Staff have to be an asset, not a liability. And you have to make money out of that investment that you are making in your staff, in your business.
Absolutely. So
that's a basic metric.
It is a basic metric, but people get it wrong all the time. And one of the reasons they get it wrong is because people tend to have this short-term focus quite often in business. And so they think of today, they're not thinking of tomorrow. They're thinking of the day-to-day that I've got to do, not thinking of tomorrow. They let things slip from a staff point of view, and those little things culminate to big things over time. And so often what happens, we see this in business as well, when someone decides, okay, it's time for me to sell my business, they've come at it at the wrong time. Often when you've got to replace a person in your business, you leave it till the last minute, and then you're stuck, you've got this gaping hole, and you think, shit, okay, now what am I going to do? So you rush around recruiting, quickly fill the gap.
Yes.
With
you don't take your time.
That's right.
Got a pulse. Put them in.
Right. Put them in. And then you realize 2 months later or 3 months or a week or whatever time frame, you're like, oh, I made the wrong decision. I shouldn't have employed you.
Yeah.
And then you're sort of backpedaling. Then you realize, oh, no, probation period's over. You're full-time. Oh, now I've got to performance manage you.
Now, that's laziness to let that get to that stage. But that happens, right?
It happens.
Because, reiterate what you just said, most business owners, me included, you tend to put it off. You don't want to do it. We get lazy. And it's just a hard job to have to sack somebody or replace them. So, and you run around, you accept second best.
As opposed to having the processes and systems in place.
Taking the time.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So,
and by the way, I've seen some incredible, just recently, and I might even mention the company later, incredible case studies and stories where people have converted their recruitment process from the traditional to a special system. And the difference in their business is incredible because they're looking for performers. That's their that's their KPI. What's they're looking for?
I love that.
But not personality, not other things, but the performance. So there's definitely how you take time and your process for recruitment and onboarding is really an important thing that we just gloss over so readily.
Absolutely.
Too easily.
And the big but in there is that often the reason, like we said before, we gloss over because we're desperate. We're all of a sudden we won this work.
Yeah.
And it might be that we've got great culture, great team environment, everything's gone really well, and it's because of that we've had so much work come in that all of a sudden we have to put on people and we feel that we're obligated to rush the process because our customers, our clients are waiting. We've got to deliver, we'll deliver. But again, it goes back to not thinking forward progressively enough and not having the right structures in place.
So just on that, we thought we'd talk today about redundancy, and redundancy has many meanings. It's not just about meanings. It's not just about making a staff member redundant. It's about making sure that you have the capacity for anyone to be replaced at any point in time. It means that you also have maybe even surplus capacity. Mm-hmm. This is a tweaking and tuning thing. So I actually believe it's better to have a small team running at 100% than a large team running at 60 or 70%. Mm-hmm. But in some businesses, you need that surplus capacity to handle when things go wrong. Like, for example, potentially airlines. You know, you don't know when there's going to be flight delays or things go wrong, and you need that surplus stuff. So getting it, tweaking and tuning it to get it right is critical. And having redundancy in terms of nobody is irreplaceable, everyone is redundant, including your suppliers. You can't be reliant on one insurance broker or one doctor, or you need to have the ability to be able to switch and change and keep things rolling smoothly. It's critical, and I think it's becoming more important into the future than it's ever been before. You know, you look at when the Optus thing hit about 3 months ago, it wiped out a lot of businesses for a day, and some people had a redundancy in their business where they could switch over to an alternate process or system seamlessly, basically, and keep trading. And that's really the key to what I think we're talking about today. It's not just employees. Predominantly, that's the biggest thing, because you said it's one of your top two expenses. It really is what determines a business from a job. Get that right, and you can get your business is so much better for it.
Absolutely. And it's not just the people, but it's also the role redundancy. So what we mean by that is that there's got to be the ability that if someone goes on annual leave in your business, someone is able to step in and take over their position. Someone's able to handle that work. If someone gets sick, if you've got everything tied to that one person, what are you going to do? If they've had a car accident and they're in a coma for, God forbid, what are you going to do if everything's sitting with that one person? So redundancy is also about sharing the knowledge, sharing the tasks and responsibilities, so that people are multifaceted and they can move around and shuffle and step up or in.
So the sign of a good business is that you have this flexibility amongst roles, where if this person is out, someone else can slot in. And sometimes the way to get there is to constantly have, blur the lines. So you might have a mentor training a younger person, so that when the mentor's away, they can step in and do what they've been trained to do to take over from that person. It happens in medicine. A specialist surgeon, orthopedic surgeon, has to go away on holidays at some point in time and has to have somebody that they can use to step in. So they have to train that person. You would have seen that in your previous career.
Absolutely. And it's also about the relationships with other service providers, where sometimes, like in that orthopedic surgeon case, they might say, you know what, I'm going to contact a competitor, and I sort of use that term loosely, and the work goes somewhere else for a small period of time. If that's what you got to do, then fine. Obviously, the best solution is always if you've got someone on your team that can come in.
Yeah.
I wanted to share a little snippet of a funny movie, Office Space. If anyone hasn't watched it, go and watch it. Really, really funny.
It's a few years old.
It is quite a few years old. I don't know when it was produced, but it's been around for a while. Jay, do you know how long it's been around for?
1999.
There you go. Trivia night went up.
I'm going to watch it.
Such a good movie, but I wanted to. We wanted to play a particular scene out of it where there's a fed-up employee who's just absolutely had enough, and he had a realization after going through all this chaos that, you know what, he just doesn't give a shit anymore. He'll just say it how it is. He'll act however he wants, and he'll just roll with the punches at work and see what happens. So this is a little snippet where senior management decide to bring in a couple of management consultants to look at, restructuring, laying off some people, etc. So we'll play this and we'll just sort of have a conversation around restructuring, organizational redesign. But we'll talk more about culture and what it means for the business as well.
Okay.
Next batter looks like a Peter Gibbons. Oh, there you are. We were just talking about you. You must be Peter Gibbons. Terrific. I'm Bob Slidell. This is my associate, Bob Porter.
Oh, hi, Bob. Bob?
Pretty much go ahead and grab a seat and join us for a minute or two. You see, what we're actually trying to do here is we're trying to get a feel for how people spend their day at work. So, if you would you walk us through a typical day for you?
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I generally come in at least 15 minutes late. I use the side door. That way Lumberg can't see me. And after that, I just sort of space out for about an hour. Till I'm thirsty.
Space out?
Yeah. I just stare at my desk. But it looks like I'm working. I do that for probably another hour after lunch, too. I'd say in a given week, I probably only do about 15 minutes of real, actual work.
He's honest, isn't he?
Peter, would you be a good sport and indulge us and just tell us a little more?
Oh, yeah. Let me tell you something about TPS reports. The thing is, Bob, it's not that I'm lazy. It's that I just don't care.
Don't care?
It's a problem of motivation, all right? Now, if I work my ass off and Initech ships a few extra units, I don't see another dime. So where's the motivation? And here's something else, Bob. I have 8 different bosses right now.
Beg your pardon?
8 bosses.
8?
8, Bob. So that means that when I make a mistake, I have 8 different people coming by to tell me about it. That's my only real motivation, is not to be hassled. That and the fear of losing my job. But you know, Bob, that'll only make someone work just hard enough not to get fired.
Would you bear with me for just a second, please?
Okay.
What if, and believe me, this is so hypothetical, but what if you were offered some kind of a stock option equity sharing program? Would that do anything for you?
I don't know, I guess. Listen, I'm gonna go. It's been really nice talking to both of you guys.
Absolutely. The pleasure's all on this side of the table, trust me.
Good luck with your layoffs, all right? I hope your firings go really well.
Excellent. Great.
Good little movie.
Oops. Oh, on to the next one.
Good little movie. Yeah, so there's a couple of things that we can take out of that. There's definitely a bit of a paradox in there. So first of all, we see the impact of having poor performers, having poor culture within an organization that's driven by poor leadership, poor management, poor practices can result in what initially might have been really good performers, really good workers, turning into these blasé individuals like that. You know, that
and it
character
becomes acceptable too.
Absolutely,
Accepted.
it's just how it is, and he does. You know, works 15 minutes a week. Now imagine if you're paying that person $80,000 base a year, or $100,000, whatever it might be, and they're only performing to that level.
Yes.
And you can see that what happens in the bigger organizations, the bigger the team, the easier it is for someone to disappear within the team. It's easier for them to sit back and, you know, not be noticed as such. What the paradox of it, though, is that what that individual did, so when he woke up in the morning, you got to watch the movie to see this, but when he wakes up and he realizes, you know what, I'm just going to not care anymore. There's a concept called psychological safety, and it's devised by Professor Amy Edmondson. And she talks about this concept where if your employees, if people in an organization feel safe psychologically, so what that means is that they feel safe in opening their minds, opening their mouth and verbalizing what's in their mind, and they're having open, transparent conversations with everybody, then what ends up happening is that you've got a stronger culture because there's no fear of ramifications. So you don't have to fear that the big boss is going to come down on me. You know, you can voice opinions up, opinions down. You're on the same
That's very helpful.
page. Yeah. And what he's done there is, in fact, he's kind of demonstrated that, okay, this is how you behave in a psychological safe organization where you voice your opinions, and you're heard and you're respected, and okay, great, give great feedback, Bruce. You know, so it's really powerful when you see it in that sort of context, in a community context, and then you go, wow, okay, that is actually how a lot of organizations run. That is actually how some people in organizations behave. And I've seen this as an advisor walking in. You watch what people do, and you're on the shop floor or whatever it might be. You go, that person's sitting back, that person's walking at a really slow pace, they're not engaged, they're not as effective as they could be.
Just watching that, then I was thinking to myself, I wonder how many business owners are accepting mediocrity or less. I wonder how many business owners couldn't be bothered to raise the standard, or it's too hard. And it is hard. It's become a challenge to move someone on if they're not a performer, and to find someone who is a performer. That's a challenge.
Absolutely, which is why we've got to focus on this whole topic of making people redundant, because through the process of analysing and putting those systems and processes, you end up actually getting more effectiveness out of your people. You have a stronger culture, and then you end up turning the tide, and you can turn a poor performer into an excellent performer just by making some of those changes.
So this is where culture equals profit. I've walked into, you can feel it as soon as you walk in. I walked into a company a couple of weeks ago up here near the Port of Brisbane, and the culture was so positive. There was a buzz in the place. The people were proud to work there. The owner had really good systems and standards, and he was a happy guy.
Yep.
And a similar business I went to out near Toowoomba last year had been owned by one tyrant for many years. Constant turnover of staff. The family members had worked in the business, couldn't work there. They didn't talk to each other. It was horrible. And you could see it in the bottom line. Exactly the same industries, exactly the same customer base.
Yep.
Yeah. Only difference, culture. Not marketing, not branding, not...
Like I've said before, it's the people that make or break the business. There's a famous saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yeah, right.
Culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yes,
so you can strategize as much as you want.
Yes.
You know, have the best plans, but if you stuff the culture bit up,
you're not going to get there.
You're not going to get there.
Yeah.
So there's an activity called organisation redesign that we run clients through quite often when we see that we need to change things internally from a people perspective. And I wanted to share that with everyone because it's such a powerful, it's a very simple exercise, but really, really powerful. And it's a 5-step process. So step number 1 is we sit down and we analyse the people in the business. We ask the question of, what are they actually doing? So let's list everything that Bruce does, everything that Jay does, everything that whoever's in that business does on a day-to-day basis. So we list it. Once we've got that list, what we then do is we reflect and we go, okay.
Is that step 2?
Step number 2 is reflection and adjusting. So we look through the list and we go, okay, and with every task, we ask this question, should Bruce be doing that task? Yes or no? And if no, okay, then we ask the question of, who do we give it to? Because someone's going to take a task. If you've got to do a task and we're going to say you're not going to do it moving forward, then the question is, well, who's going to get it? So we either give it to someone, or it might be that, you know what, Bruce is going to lose that, but he instead needs to take on this new task. So then you're gaining a task. And then the question is, who are you going to gain that from? Because obviously someone's doing it at the moment in most instances. So who do you gain it from? Step number 3, once we've gone through that and you've remapped it, is to then update all position descriptions straight away from that, because that list actually gives you the position description for that role, which obviously you have names against, but you can put it to the role. And then number 4 is to communicate that to your team. So sit down, first of all, collectively with the team, talk them through the exercise that you've gone through. That's if you haven't involved the team. So you know, that's a discussion you've got to have internally.
But ultimately, you're explaining to everyone what the new delineational roles are, or
exactly what you're doing is you're explaining why you've undertaken that activity. So you might say that, look, we've been doing the same things the same way for the past few years. We're noticing that there's some double ups, there's some inefficiencies. So to clarify everyone's roles and responsibilities, we've had a look at what everyone's doing. We've done a bit of a shuffle, and then you can lead into say, okay, we now have also written position descriptions. We're going to sit down one-on-one with everyone on the team and take you through, make sure you're happy with what we've got here, make sure that we're both on the same page, because you don't want to be forcing things on people. It's a journey that you're taking people.
It has to make sense as well.
Absolutely.
Because you can imagine you're an employee doing something you think doesn't make sense or it's not going to work. You're not going to give it 100%.
Absolutely. So once you've got the PDs, you sit down, you communicate with your team member, you get their buy-in. Now, at that point in time, there will always be this question that you've got to ask them, and that's that, have you got the skills, the right skills, abilities, knowledge to complete all of the tasks that you've got in the position description? And quite often when we're doing a reshuffle, the answer will be, you know what, I have an idea of how to do that, Bruce, but not 100% certain.
Yeah.
So that then becomes the input into the training and development plan for that individual. So you could say, okay, Peter, well, there's 5 things that we've identified, or Bruce, 5 things we've identified that are new tasks, but clearly we need to upskill you on those. So why don't you go away, Bruce, and come back to me and let me know how much it would cost to go through, I don't know, social media management course. There might be some design courses. Let me know so that we can then allocate a budget towards it and help you put this in play. So that then becomes the 5th step, which is support. So we're then saying to someone, here's a new PD. We're now going to support you, Bruce, to elevate you and make you really effective and make you a superstar in that position.
That is, I've never heard that. That is really simple way to do it.
Simple 5-step process.
I think you could apply that to business owners as well.
Business owner is in there, and the first people we look at when we go through this process is always the business owners.
Yeah. Many owners put themselves so deeply into the business operation, they don't need to be there. So I was looking at a real estate office recently where ego plays a fairly big part in real estate for some reason, and the principal wanted to be deeply involved in every transaction, everything that's going on, couldn't step back. And when they did go away, things ran more smoothly because there was less people involved.
Less of that control and less of the ego. Now, what I've just outlined, if we're talking about succession, for example, if we're talking about exit planning for a business, this is actually where we start the process. Because by doing this, we identify, okay, what are the things that the business owner is doing that they should not be doing if they were to step away from the business and if they were to put a manager in place.
Yeah.
So what we're doing then through this activity is we're actually developing the role of the person that's going to take over from the business owner. And this is pretty much step one of succession or exit planning, other than the diagnostic piece, so you understand the business. But really, it's about, okay, how do we take you out of the day-to-day?
Yeah.
What are the things that we've got to put in place? And often it's a multi-year strategy because you've got to upskill. So if we were to replace Bruce out of Benchmark Business, we know that it would take multi-years and we'd have to have an upskilling strategy to bring someone in and mentoring.
I don't know. But it's definitely the right way to go. I was with a guy who has a very large logistics company, and he was doing a lot himself, including the onboarding and training. And he thought that he couldn't afford to pay somebody full-time to be an onboarder and trainer, which would have been about $120,000 a year. So he got a contractor in to do that for them. Way better processes than what he was doing himself. Obviously, he didn't want to admit that. But within a year, that contractor became a permanent employee, and because of the efficiencies that they gained, and because more people wanted to come and work with them, it's hard to get staff at the moment, but they had people wanting to come work there because this guy's training and processes and systems. They were able to take on more contracts, and the business has grown double, triple paid for.
Incredible.
Yeah. So many of us business owners forget or don't appreciate that making yourself redundant can grow your productivity massively.
100%.
We could be the handbrake that's holding the business back.
We can be. And as soon as we're made redundant, we're not the handbrake, we can be more strategic. We can think of innovation. We can think of all the other things, all the other activities that we could be doing, adding more value to the business. At some point exiting if that's what you want.
Yes, exactly. Oh, one of my most successful business associates, friends, has 40 businesses, doesn't work in any of them, and he's now got into property development and hotels and all sorts of stuff, all because he steps back and lets everyone else run it for him. He's a great business owner, not a great business operator.
Being able to take that ego out of the business.
Yeah.
You know what, you guys run it. You have.
Yeah. God, he's a good example for people, you know.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, what are the...
We should get him on one day.
Actually, we should. We'll talk about that offline.
Yeah.
What are the key takeaway messages? Yeah.
You're going to ask that.
I love the takeaways.
I've got one simple one today. Employees are an investment. The money that we pay staff is an investment. We want to get a return on investment. And if you have an investment of any form, shares, property, a luxury car, you want to maintain it and look after it. A racehorse, you don't want to just leave it in the paddock and let it rot. You want to look after it and nurture it. And I think so that investment in staff needs to be nurtured and looked after and treated as a valuable commodity and not a liability.
Absolutely. I'd definitely agree with that. And I'd say people first. Build a business with people first, your people first, your internal people first. Focus on them. And like you said, if we focus on the people, then eventually we'll help them move forward on the journey with us. We've got the people that are going to be coming in from a succession point of view. We can go on holidays because we know that the business is running. We know that we've got ethical people on board. So people first.
Yeah. I'm going to put if it's okay with you guys, I'm going to organise for us to put a link in the notes to this company that does this kind of performance analytics for getting staff on board.
Yep. I think
if anyone wants to go there and have a look, you might find it very interesting.
Fantastic. Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks, Pete. See you later, everybody. See you next time.
Bye.